Hi, my name is Addie, and welcome to The Pulse. Hello, everyone. Today I am speaking with Chris Diener. He is a specialist in live production and engineering. He's worked with some of the biggest names in country music, from Brooks and Dunn to Sheryl Crow, and now pop country icon Kelsea Ballerini. Chris, thank you so much for coming on today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I'm really excited to talk to you because I think we come from two totally different worlds. I'm in a band that basically does, if we really strip it down here, we're doing covers in our bedroom. So we're working from home pretty much all the time. I've done a little bit of touring here and there, but really, fundamentally, it's a drastically different kind of, workspace in the music industry. So I'm really excited to hear, like, from your perspective, what things kind of look like. So
Sure.
If you could, when you meet someone for the first time and you explain what you do for a living, what do you typically say?
As little as possible.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
No, it's, it's always, when people are outside of the industry, it's really interesting to kind of explain what it is that we do because, there's obviously like a great deal of glamour associated with that, right?
Yep.
Oh, you get to see all these cool people and you get to hang out with stars and stuff like that.
Right.
And, which, some of those things are super true, and especially like with Kelsey's situation, she's very personable. She's a friend. It's really a good relationship that we all have with her as a crew and band. And but you kind of shatter a little bit of the illusions when talking to the general public about what it is that we do. And oh, did you get to go to a cool place? It's like, well, I got to see the inside of an arena or a theater or
Right,
a club
right.
or whatever. And it's not. I guess once you see how the sausage is made, you kind of look at it differently.
Yeah, right. A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you've done so much touring and have seen so many different places.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what kind of becomes important to you is a little bit different than maybe what an outside person might see or
Sure.
know that has that much, history behind it or interest to them. So you're talking with that you've been working with Kelsea. What has been some of the experiences more recently for you?
As far as during the pandemic, you mean, or?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been such a wild shift from what you were doing before in kind of a
Yeah.
live setting and everything, and how has that affected you in more recent times?
Sure. Well, it's actually crazy. We were preparing for a really big year last year.
Weren't we all?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. We were literally at Spectrum prepping audio gear. We were going to go do a big iHeart show in New York. We were about to do an album launch. We were going to do these kind of specialized shows for press and fan club members and stuff like that. And, as we were there prepping all this gear and, we were kind of checking off all the boxes, everything kept closing. Right. And we
Yep.
were seeing like, oh, this has gone away. Okay, well, this is now canceled. Okay, got it. So we're going to shift to the next project. And every
Right.
project that we would shift to would get canceled. And so eventually we were just kind of looking at each other like, gosh, this is for real. Like sports just canceled,
Right.
like as a whole.
Yeah.
And so we had to kind of like just kind of wait and see. And then it really just became a what are we doing? Right. And so
Yep.
we kind of sat around and, there was, people were checking in with me, backline texts and stuff like, hey, what's going on? And I don't know. Nobody knows. We were just kind of all waiting. And then, from that kind of super dark place, it became, well, let's track stuff at home. And we're going to do this thing, but, everybody will be home. They'll be tracking it. We'll send you the tracks. You'll mix it. We'll send it to whatever. And then they'll compile the video. And I think we probably did 8 to 12 of those things last year.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was anything from Sirius XM to, iHeart to, we did something for Intercom. Like it was all these different things. And it was really cool, like to be able to kind of still do what we do best, but just in a different environment.
Yeah, I think I'm super curious as to what the difference is between that. I'm sure it's massive, but working in a live environment, do you still, or I guess the opposite, working in a at-home environment, do you still have that, drunk guy yelling at you to change the mix, or is that like,
I've been fortunate. I don't have a whole lot of those. And fortunately, as production manager, I get a lot of leeway there as to like, does this person need to stay or not? But
Right.
it's really interesting, and it's on a personal level. I think it's changed a lot for me and my wife. Especially because when we first met, I was touring, obviously, and when we got married, that was the deal. Like everybody kind of understood that I would be gone, 3-4 days a week, and this
Wrote
is
it
the
into
most
the
I've
marriage
slept.
contract.
Right. Yeah, exactly. This is not what I signed up for. But this is the most I've slept in my own bed in 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And which is
Wow.
crazy to think about.
It is.
And it's the most I've been home. And initially it was a huge kind of shock. And, I think as married people, everybody kind of goes through that once a year, kind of when people come home for the holidays and, you're not constantly having a bag packed, and you actually unpack all your stuff from your suitcase and put it away, and you have an empty suitcase for the first time in a year. But on a personal level, it was really strange that I was just here, like all the time. And, talking about not having that live event thing, when you step away from the fans, the whole thing kind of changes,
Yeah.
And we're out there for the fans. I mean, that's literally the baseline thing. So like any prop or special effect or cool PA that we have or anything like that, ultimately it always boils down to the fan experience. And we were just trying to carry that through into everything that we were doing for these streaming events and stuff like that. And I hope we've given fans something that they can kind of hold on to as a placeholder until live touring comes back.
I think you have. I mean, I know I can speak from experience from the live streaming community that I've had so many different people come to me and say, thank you. This is the only thing that I have. It's the only kind of like sense of normalcy that I still have in my life. So I think it's really cool that you're able to still do that for people.
Yeah.
So then let's jump backwards a little bit to, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No. I was going to say, as a person who doesn't like to go to shows, right? Just because I do it.
Right, sure.
Even I miss going to shows,
Yeah.
It's just crazy to think that this is such an embarrassing thing to say, but I was in the airport actually flying home for some family stuff, and there was somebody playing acoustic in the bar, one of the bars in the Nashville airport. And I remember just standing there going wow, I really missed this, as a thing. I really missed live music. And I think people in general are just so excited to get back to that whenever that becomes possible.
Our band, it all has, we'd done a little bit of touring in the past, but it was never really something that was super successful for us. We found better success online, and we were like, that's all we're going to do. We're never going to tour again, blah, blah, blah. And then pretty much right before this pandemic hit, we're like, let's try touring again.
Yeah.
And then of course it all shuts down.
Yeah.
So now we're like, oh God, please let us go.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about touring, because you're going to have some, I'm sure you've got stories, and I need to know. So let's start with what do you enjoy most about touring, and what is your least favorite part about it?
I think my favorite part is the execution. And by that I mean we'll start with an idea, and we have some great show designers that we work with, and they'll come to us and say, this is the plan and this is whatever. And on paper, maybe sometimes at first it'll seem like, oh my God, how are we gonna fit this in these trucks, or whatever. And then we just whittle away at it, and it becomes a reality. And then when Kelsey walks in and she sees it for the first time, I'll never forget the last tour we did. She walked in and we kind of kept it like a secret, and we had like a big reveal of this is the stage, this is the PA, this is all the gags, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And it was like watching a kid on Christmas.
Oh,
yeah, and it was,
that's so
there's
sweet.
some really cool pictures of it too. And it just, she was blown away. And I think that execution is, the word I keep using, that execution from paper to vision, to completed show. That I think is my favorite part. Coming together as a crew, coming together as a team, working out what we doing with audio and lighting, and how are we going to interact, and stuff like that. I think that process is probably my favorite part.
I mean, it's almost something similar to almost like creating a movie out of a book or something.
Oh,
You've
gosh.
got this piece of paper that says here's the basis of what we want to accomplish, and then you have to be able to figure out how you're going to execute that, and that must just be so involved, not only mentally, but with kind of creating this little family dynamic between the people that you're working with. Absolutely. That's crazy.
Yeah, and it's a moving target too, right? Like we always have variables that are shifting, and whether that's a building or whether that's routing, or there's a snowstorm and we can't get there, or a global pandemic, like
gotta keep things exciting.
Yeah, it's a lot going on. And really, as far as my least favorite part, I don't really know if I have a good answer for that. I feel like, it's some long days and it's time away from family, and that's never fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is, I guess, but I would have to say just the travel as a whole. Like I don't mind the travel at all, and I think it's kind of fun, and you get in that mode and you just sort of live out of your suitcase, and you're kind of a that person. But I'd say probably just being away from family would be the disadvantage there. But
tell me if you've experienced this. This is something that, like I said, we have pretty limited touring experience, but on our longer stints, it felt like almost like a dream when you would come back home. Like, did any of that actually happen?
Right.
Was that real? It always feels so surreal when you come back home. I think about when I first get into my car and I'm driving and I'm like, I don't know if I should even be at the wheel right now. Like, I forget how to do all this.
Probably shouldn't be doing this now. Yeah. No, you're right. And I think we notice that a lot in, like, when we tell stories like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we made it out of that building, or I can't believe that rigging call took so long, or I can't believe, this, that, and whatever. And, in the moment you're thinking like, how are we going to get out of this? Maybe internally, not externally, but, and then you get through it and you're like, well, I'm just so much better of a person for making it through that situation.
Totally. Yeah. So speaking to that, let's I gotta hear a crazy story. So give me something that pops out in your mind, and you don't have to name names or anything, but something that sticks out to you that you're just like, wow, how did this happen?
Okay, this is just the first thing that comes to mind, and it's not a very exciting. Well, it's exciting for sure. We were on I want to say it was the Keith Urban tour. And we were in Missoula, Montana. And so we had left the show, we had loaded out and everything like that. And we were all having a good time. It was the end of a run. I think we were headed to some airport that was kind of like 8 hours away, so we could drive through the night, get on the plane the next morning, sort of situation. Okay. And one of our guys decided to just drink straight gin. Never does that. And I don't know who does. And that
always leads to a good time.
And it started like during, like everybody taking showers, getting ready to go. He's just like straight out of the bottle. And I think it was kind of like, wow, this is ridiculous, so I'm going to keep doing it sort of thing. But so we were kind of hanging out. We were watching a movie. I think we might have been even playing cards in the front lounge, which is super difficult. And it just got to the point where it was time for him to go to bed, if you know what I mean. Like, everybody kind of gets to that point, and it was like, okay, all right, guy, you're gonna whatever. Totally killed the vibe. Like, everybody was just like, oh man, okay, cool, whatever. Let's all just go to bed. So literally 10 people all just boom, go right to bed. Not a single soul stayed up, not one, right? And not any sooner as I had climbed into my bunk, our bus hit an elk on the highway. And it destroyed the front windshield. It blew glass all the way into the bunk area, pushed everybody to their feet.
Wow.
And we had to,
How big was this elk?
Yeah, it was
Oh my goodness.
The Montana Highway Patrol said it was the biggest elk they had seen in that region. Ever.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So we, pull over, hit the shoulder, and we had to wait for our band bus, who had left an hour ahead of us, to come back and pick us up. And so, not only it's the middle of the night, everybody's drunk, including myself, and I'm now having to call the police on the side of the road, and my cell phone doesn't work. So like we're going through all the crew members, like first it's, is everybody okay? Everybody's cool. Make sure the driver's okay. He had glass everywhere in his eyes. It was pretty super bad.
No.
And so I'm trying to find a phone that works, and we can't. And so I'm like flagging people down, and we're putting cones out and stuff like that. And it was an ordeal, to say the least. But But,
Wow.
and I have this joke like, oh, anytime we're going to like, oh, well, let's cut loose and have a little party tonight, then I got to put my production manager shoes on and do something.
Oh
But
God,
yeah,
no.
but that's,
Not that again,
yeah,
please.
exactly. But that just kind of shows you, like anything can happen. And you are in a
Yeah.
moving vehicle, with a bunch of people blasting down the road. So, not a super glamorous story, but a crazy story nonetheless.
No, that's wild. And I mean, yeah, I think all of the craziest stories happen to come from breaking down. It's always breaking down. How does that happen so often?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, so I'm curious because you've worked with a lot of different
Mm-hmm.
people, and how does that generally work when you decide to? I don't know if you decide to work with someone else, or how does that, shift happen? And is it weird to suddenly be working with a different group of
Sure.
people? How does that kind of work?
Yeah, sometimes I definitely choose. Sometimes you don't, and that's cool.
Yeah.
But you become a family, and you are a part of that family, and it's always really difficult to kind of walk away from that if you really enjoy the company, and
Yeah.
just kind of get in and learn, because every camp has its own culture. Everybody, they have their
Yeah.
own jokes, they have their own kind of hierarchy, they have their own way of doing things, and it's kind of an assimilation period at first to kind of go in and get the lay of the land and see, what works, what doesn't work. I'm a super direct, very honest person when it comes to dealing with artists. Some artists really enjoy that. Some artists do not at all. And so it's kind of learning that dance of, how do I be myself?
Yeah.
How do I fit in? How do I accomplish their goals?
Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Yeah, it's probably it's like, we've always said that being in a band is like being in a marriage with a bunch of different people. So I can imagine that expands only as the relationships get
Yes.
bigger,
Yeah.
and that can cause a lot of drama.
It can, especially with Kelsey, we've been so fortunate that we all just get along really well. We have such a great group of super talented people, and I feel like every new person that we bring on is better than the last. And yeah, it's
that's
just it's a
awesome.
really good, solid environment where we do a lot of screwing around, a lot of screwing around. But when it comes down to showtime, it's always business, and we always hit the
Yeah.
mark, which is great. Yeah.
Awesome, and that's the way that it should be. So then I'm curious, like, what tips would you be giving to somebody who's maybe looking into getting into live production and doing what you
Sure.
do?
Be around. Never be afraid to do something that you might not know how to do. There's always that adage where if somebody asks you to do something you don't know how to do, say yes and figure it out. I certainly have done that on many occasions. Sometimes it's failed. Sometimes I've really learned a ton and come through much bigger on the other side. It's if you have a passion for it and you want to be there, excitement and enthusiasm to me are the biggest, most attractive attributes of any person. If you really want to be there, you want to do a good job, you are open to learning, that's crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's really interesting when you say it like that being open to these things that maybe you're kind of uncomfortable
Yeah.
with, that push your boundaries a little
yeah.
bit. But in the end, you end up learning so much more than you would have if you hadn't taken it
Yeah.
in the first place. Is there any example for you that sticks out in your mind of something where you feel like you took a really big risk and either it helped you or maybe it didn't?
I was working with a country artist named Joe Nichols, and we had a production manager who was the monitor engineer, and I was mixing front of house. And they were parting ways with him, and they asked me, would you be interested in being the production manager? And my first thought was, absolutely not. Like, I don't want to be ordering guitar string, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be on the phone. I don't want to be setting schedules. Like, I want to mix, I want to do my thing, and I want to just be done, right? And so they just didn't hire someone. And I basically had to do it anyway. And so finally I was like, well, fine, I'll do it. Whatever. I'll do it. And if I hate it, then we can always reevaluate. And I've been doing it ever since. So it must not have been that bad.
Aw. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of pressure, though. I understand why you would be kind of
Yeah,
apprehensive.
and wearing two
to
hats.
kind
I
of
mean,
take that on.
as an audio engineer and a production manager, that's twice as much
Right.
to worry about. And sometimes you have to make sacrifices, and it all depends on how you can allocate your time accordingly. Yeah.
Okay, I'm a little interested into this is a little bit
Okay.
off topic, but you recently did a podcast
Uh-huh.
with your dad, and is he in music? Is this something that you guys
Yeah,
share?
it is. So I grew up in a musical family. My dad is a multi-instrumentalist. My mom plays a little bit of piano, sang. Both of them sang in like church choir. My dad had wedding bands, and he was in all sorts of different ensembles. And I kind of grew up with that. I mean, we always were exposed to a lot of really cool music and stuff that I definitely wouldn't have been exposed to as a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old, and like
Right.
Steely Dan and stuff like that, like things that I remember
Yeah,
my
no
dad
kidding.
playing for me and me going, oh, this is so stupid, this is elevator music. And then he would play like Asia, and I'd be like, hey,
Yeah.
just play that just one more time, and it was like, and then I was hooked. But yeah, I
Nice.
mean, and he was an engineer, still is, and he would bring home bits of gear, from work, and it would always be like a tape machine or an old console, like an old Tascam or something. And he would just sort of leave it there, and sometimes I would be allowed to put it together and play with it, and other times I wouldn't be, and I would do it anyway. And that just really piqued my interest in doing that. And the collection of secondhand stuff grew, and I ended up going to college for it, and this rest is sort of history, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that makes total sense that you would come from
Mm-hmm.
a family like that with how far you've come and everything. That's really cool, and I think that's so interesting how you took an interest in what was it, a cassette tape
Yeah,
player?
so originally it was like a stereo, like a boombox thing, and there was a microphone
Okay.
input on the back, and it was a dual cassette thing, and only one of them could record. And somehow I figured out that I could have something on tape on the A side and hit play, but hit record on the B side, and it would not only record what was on cassette A to cassette B, but it would also take the microphone input, right? So it became this like
Right.
circle of overdubs. So I would like record something from A to B with the mic, and then I would move the tape and then put another tape in, and then I would just constantly stack on top and on top and on top.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
so fascinating. So you were basically doing that job just
Hun-
right out of the gates.
100%,
That's
yeah.
like
And it was all analog. I mean, for the most part. And I
Yeah.
didn't really, this is kind of embarrassing to admit, but I didn't even touch Pro Tools until college. Like never even touched a digital system. I mean, we had a hard disk
my.
thing, but that was
Yeah.
much, much different. But yeah, and it was,
But that's cool though, because then you already have like a fundamental
oh
understanding
yeah.
of how
And
this
then,
works.
and going to Belmont, we were doing like Align tape machines and stuff. And I thought, oh, this is awesome. Like, yeah, I'm super into that. And there's
Yeah.
kids going like, what's a tape machine, Yeah.
What is
it
that?
this
How
whole
does that
thing.
work?
But,
I don't understand.
Yeah, it was an invaluable experience, and I would highly recommend Belmont to anyone.
That's cool. Did you go directly for live production?
I actually went for studio production. So I went for,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and then I needed a job because I was super out of money immediately after going to college. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I went to this on-campus job fair, and I remember standing in a line because my angle at the time was I'm going to work at the School of Music, in the School of Music building. I'm going to meet other musicians. I'm going to become friends with them. I'm going to be in a band. We're going to hit it big. That was my right?
Isn't that everybody's?
I
Yeah.
mean, maybe, yeah. And so as I'm standing in line, the line next to that line was for the Performing Arts Center on campus. And I hear this guy over, just kind of talking, we do live events and we do this and whatever. And I'm kind of like, yeah, that sounds cooler. And so I just sort of sidestep into the other line. And I ended up working there. And that was one of the first live sound situations I ever really got into. And, I had done live sound situations before and just much smaller scale. But there's a guy who I could really only describe as my mentor, really. His name is Frank Baird, and he teaches at a different school now. But he was a hardened road dog, in no other ways to put it. And he taught me more in 2 or 3 years than I had ever learned.
Yeah.
And it was a super hard experience at times, and it was a super gratifying experience at others. But man, did I learn a lot and very quickly.
it's so important to have people like that are able to push you in that kind of way. I think everybody
Oh,
has
absolutely.
that one person that maybe they at some point were kind of like, what do you know? That kind of thing.
Oh man.
But
Yeah, and I remember him teaching me like at one point, like, here's how you tape down a mic cable with gaffer's tape.
you're like,
And I remember
oh
thinking like,
God.
this is so stupid. And I remember him thinking, like him watching me roll my eyes at him and go like, oh, you
Just
think you're better
wait.
than this?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was like, I mean, yeah. And he's like, no, this is how you really do it. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's jump over to a little segment. We're going to talk about what's in your show bag. So
Okay.
tell me, are you like a super organized person with it, or is there stuff in there that you've had for years, like you're not sure what's at the bottom?
Oh no, I'll clean my bag out 47 times a year. Yeah, no, I go through it all the time. And
And there still happens to be like 20 Sharpies and 3 things of gaff tape at the bottom.
surprisingly, I never have Sharpies.
Really?
I think people steal them. Yeah, I think that's
They
what's going
do.
on.
They absolutely do.
Yeah, I think people know where I keep them. No, we live in what I call the dongle lifestyle now, and it's, every computer has 30 dongles, or I need
Right.
adapters for this or hard drives. So typically, I'll have anywhere between 4 to 7 hard drives. I'll have
Oh my gosh.
kind of a tool pouch full of dongles, USB drive, stuff like that. Obviously, my computer. I have a kind of a mobile toolkit for repairing
Yep,
fine
gotta have
electronics,
that.
like small thread stuff. I have an extra phone. I have
An extra
obviously
phone. Is that for your
an extra phone
for your side gigs that you just got to make a quick call?
if anything ever happens to my phone, my real phone, I have the last iPhone that I owned just in the bag, just in case.
That is a brilliant idea.
Yeah, I got burned on that one time. Like I think it was damaged in water or something, and I was just SOL with the phone. So I just thought, like, what else would I do with the old one? So I'm just gonna keep it in the bag.
Yeah.
Passport, my in-ears, a couple other spares of in-ears. And then this is a TMI situation, but keep a thing of baby wipes, because
Oh yeah.
holy smokes, if you've ever been on the road and you don't do that, you should just take my word on
Yeah,
it. You should
absolutely.
just do it right now. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But other than that, I mean, I think I probably have just a bunch of spares of things. I'm a hoarder for spares. I don't understand why. But it's always like,
Because it comes in handy.
well, yeah, but I'm the person who's like, oh, look at this cable I haven't used in 12 years. And I was like, I'll just throw it in my bag at home or in a drawer. And then literally the next day I'll need that cable, right? Mm-hmm. So I just have a bunch of like adapters and weird stuff. And just cables forever, I think would be the short answer to
Yeah,
your
we
question.
have boxes and boxes in our garage. My husband is a
Yeah.
producer, so we've got hundreds of
Yeah.
boxes full of things. I have no idea what any of them do. They're just random
pain is too
cables.
real.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have anything in there that you've had for like a really long time, or is there like a lucky charm or something that you keep just in case?
Yeah, actually, no one's ever asked me that before. I have, and I don't even know where it came from, to be completely honest.
Ooh.
It's a little, like a pewter silver pin, and it was designed to be like a lapel pin or whatever.
Okay.
And it just says good luck.
Oh,
And I don't know where it came from or how, whatever, but I have always kept that in my bag. And
that is so sweet.
yeah, and I mean, I guess it's working.
It seems like it's working.
I mean, fingers crossed, knock on something that's wood around here, I guess. But yeah. But yeah, it's just one of those things that just sort of came into my life, and I'm not sure how, and it's still there.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for speaking with us today. This was super
Absolutely.
awesome. And why don't you tell us, what you've got coming up? And I think you're a little bit more kind of like behind the scenes when it comes to social media. But if there's anywhere that people can follow you, let us know that as well.
Yeah, I do have an Instagram. It's that Chris Diener. Most of my posts are super bizarre, sarcastic things, but I'm not a real social media person, unfortunately. I just sort of,
it's for the best. You don't need to be on social media.
I feel that way. I gave up one social media platform, of a very popular one, many years ago, and I never looked back, and I just really didn't care at
Yeah.
all, and my life only improved, I think. Not knocking anybody who does that or wants to do that or whatever, but the less things that I could be tempted to look at on a daily basis, I'm into that, But
Amen.
yeah, really that's just about it. But coming up for us, we have a couple of things for Kelsey coming up. We have a summit for her record label that we'll be doing at Front Stage Studio here in town. That'll be really cool. We had just did a Opry performance. It's going to be an NBC special for celebrating. I want to say it was some anniversary of the Opry, and I would say a number, but it would be
Wow.
wrong. So it's just an anniversary of the Opry,
That's
which is
amazing, though.
super cool. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that's a kind of a holy place. So being able to be there is always a pleasure, and we have that coming up. And as things progress, we'll just have to wait and see if we are
Yeah.
able to get out and do a tour this year.
Well, good. That's a lot of cool things you got coming up. That's
Yeah.
so awesome. But
Yeah.
yeah, again, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a lovely day.
Thank you. You as well. Thanks for having me.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to see more videos just like this.